All right, welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Bradley McLaughlin.
I'm Mike Brode.
I'm Beth Stern.
I'm Sonia Kopetsky.
All right, Beth, what's the scenario?
Okay. Well, Benny's Liquor, Fireworks, and Gunpowder Emporium
Nice.
went up in flames last night, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, the motion detector alarm caught the fire, just by the motion of it, and automatically notified the police. The police called the fire department, but by the time the fire department arrived, it was too late. Now it turns out that the insurer says that there was a violation of the Protective Safeguards Endorsement that Benny had on his policy because he had this motion detector burglar alarm instead of the fire alarm that he had signed up for. Benny doesn't recall anything about adding this type of endorsement to his policy, but he apparently signed that when he took out his policy. So now he's in a little bit of a dilemma here. So that's the scenario.
All right. Fascinating scenario, and it relates to, we're looking at the calendar today, and we saw that it's First Responders Day, apparently.
Yay. Thank you, First Responders.
Yeah. Well, we have the police coming out on this one and the fire department. So, they're involved in this claim.
Yeah, always great to have a chance to honor those folks.
Yep.
Mike, I feel like you might have a story for us on this.
Yes. For some other parts of first responders are your brave dispatchers who often get 911 calls. And let's say, maybe this happened to me, maybe not, but this was when my 3 kids were much younger. And the oldest boy was in Cub Scouts. And thankfully, the Cub Scout den leader was across the street, my neighbor. So what I did on Tuesdays, I was watching the other 2 because my wife, you guys don't care. She works second shift, so she wasn't home. I'm watching the kids, all right? So now there's already trouble. So I go across the street to pick up the oldest. It's across the street, all right? My middle kid is in charge of his little sister. He was probably 6 at the time. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go right over, get your brother, and I'll be back. But what happens? You're a guy, you go across the street, start talking to my neighbor. We're gabbing a little bit. Time gets away a little bit. All right, I grab my other youngin' and go back across the street. And there's my son on the telephone. I'm like, what's going on, Jared? And he's like, Hannah was really upset. So you weren't coming home, so I called 911, and the dispatcher says I can't hang up the phone. I'm like, can I please talk to the 911 dispatcher? So, of course, I talked to them, explained I was across the street, and, I shouldn't have freaked out the kids, but apparently it did. So, of course, the friendly local police department stopped by. We had a little chat. They made sure that I wasn't some kind of abusive parent or something. And then, I wasn't arrested and carried away in front of my kids. That was good. But, you got to be careful. If you tell your kids, I'm only going to be a couple minutes, better darn well only be a couple minutes, even if it's across the street, because they're calling 911 on you pronto. So you watch out, Brendan, when yours gets a little older. Keep them away. That was a landline. That was back in the day, so don't have one of those.
So your son called the police on his sister for having like a temper tantrum or a meltdown?
That's smart.
That's where I thought you were going with this. Yeah.
Oh, no, it was all me.
Okay.
And then explaining that one to your wife when why'd 911 get called and the police come by our place? Well, I don't know. Craziness, just who knows? So, hey, Beth, before you jump in there, now, Benny's is now, this is like every guy's dream store, liquor, fireworks, and gunpowder, all in one local convenient place. What fun.
He sells it all there.
Oh, wow.
Sells it all.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that I was thinking we should kind of start with is lay it out. What are these protective safeguards for, and what kind of policies do they put on, that kind of thing? I know there's a couple different situations. I think sometimes an insured might be given a various, pricing for their policy with and without these kind of endorsements. And the insurance company might say, hey, here is, this is how much it's going to cost you if you have a protective safeguards endorsement. Here's how much it'll cost you if you don't. And obviously, that's going to be a big premium discount if you have these kind of protections on your policy, on your property.
Right.
But on the other hand, it could be that maybe this type of establishment that Benny has here, maybe this insurance company said, we won't write this at all unless you have these protective safeguards
You better have a
in
smoke
place.
detector and or alarm thing going on, or we're not writing it right.
Right. So this particular endorsement they have has a couple of different, Brennan, I think I sent you the actual policy language for this one. And here they lay out a couple of things and it starts out by saying that this particular, I think it says that the, as a condition of the insurance here, as a condition of the insurance, you are required to maintain the protective insurance safeguards that are named in the schedule. So you choose what things are going to be in the schedule, or the insurance company chooses for you. And it says that you have to have these certain things. Now, there's usually a couple of, the form provides that the insurer won't pay for loss or damage if the insurer does. If you go to the next page of this endorsement, there's a couple of different conditions here that the insured has to comply with. This number 1 and number 2. Number 1, if the insured has failed to notify the insurer of any suspension or impairment in any of the scheduled safeguards, if they had knowledge of those, then they're not going to have coverage. Or if they failed to maintain any such type of safeguard in which they had control, that has to be maintained in complete working order. So there's a couple of things that can happen. In this case, Benny, it seems like, had a motion detector, alarm, but they didn't have the type of alarm that was named in their schedule that would have required it to be connected right to the fire department. And in other words, the police are the ones that called the fire department, but this particular policy was written with the safeguard saying that you have to have this particular kind of fire alarm that is connected to the fire department directly, and they didn't have that. So, that
I was going to ask a question about this.
Yeah.
For the so we will not pay for loss caused by fire if you knew of any suspension or impairment. So let's say you were getting maintenance done, or you're fixing it. It broke and you're fixing it. It looks like you should contact the insurer to let them know.
Yeah. Part of that first one, the first section there, if you knew of any suspension in the schedule and failed to notify us of that fact, or the second one, if you failed to maintain when you had control. So, and you didn't keep it in working order. Then it does say, if it's shut off due to breakage, leakage, or something else, that notification will not be necessary if you have it, updated, or if you have these repairs completed within 48 hours. So yeah, if the insured, one of the big things they need to be able to do is, if they are out of compliance with these safeguards that they have on their policy, they need to notify the insurance company. And I guess then the insurance company can make, at that time, some kind of judgment on what's going to happen here. So yeah, it's always, if you know your alarm system, even if you have the right one, if you know that it's not working, you need to notify the insurer. So that's one of the big things. The first part of this is notice, and the second part is, you get these repairs made, but you have, so much time to do that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I feel like there is like a counterintuitive element. If you're the insured here, and you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, you know what? The alarms did notice the fire. They might have been motion alarms, but they caught the fire. They just set it. And I know this is based on a case to some extent. I remember reading that the court was like, if you had gotten a guard dog and the dog had heard about the fire or noticed the fire and the barking caught someone's attention, that wouldn't have been good enough. So this isn't good enough. It's like the wrong type of alarm, even though it caught the fire.
Right, because one of the choices here is specifically, you put it, P2 says automatic fire alarm protecting the entire building that is connected to a central station or reporting to a public or private alarm station. So, right, just the fact that you had something else isn't enough. If you have this P2 put into the schedule, that means you have to comply with what P2 requires. And so this is where an insured has to be very careful. Here Benny says he doesn't recall ever agreeing to this, but that's something that it's a really big deal. If you have one of these on your policy, you need to be aware of it.
And if he doesn't know, he can't tell them, right? Like if he doesn't know this is on there, how is he going to tell them if it's broken? He's required to tell them.
Right.
That seems to be, it's kind of, it is on the insured to know what they're signing and agreeing to.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's been a few cases that, let's say an insured makes this type of argument like that. Oh, I didn't remember I had that or whatever. But there's a few cases that have said, that's just, they're going to follow the letter of the policy. And if you haven't complied, this is something that's pretty strict compliance, it seems like, from the case law that we've seen. And there was this new case in 25 where the policyholder knew of deficiencies in their fire suppression system, yet failed to inform the insurer. And it says, before the fire giving rise to the claim, the restaurant had undergone 2 inspections, and they found out about some kind of deficiency here, and they didn't notify the insurer. And when there was a fire, then they had no coverage. Because the thing about these protective safeguard endorsements, and I will say this, I have seen these written in a number of different ways. This is kind of the standard ISO one that gets connected to many different forms. But I have seen some that just say, oh, we're adding this, you have to have this. But it doesn't say that as a condition of the insurance. Well, this one clearly says here, as a condition of the insurance provided here, you have to have, this, and this. So that's pretty clear language. And from what we do have quite a few cases, and they have been pretty strongly in favor of, strict compliance with these standards here.
And these are commercial insureds, right? They might be businesses or even farms. So they're sophisticated, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Even if you look in the beginning of this Protective Safeguards Endorsement up at the top, it says this endorsement modifies the commercial property coverage part or the farm coverage part. So yeah, this particular endorsement here can be written for a commercial establishment, or if you have a CP form, or it can be attached to a farm form as well. So, right, this is a little more than I haven't seen one of these attached to a homeowner's form, but you never know. I have not seen that. So, yeah, these are insureds who are in these commercial spaces, and a lot of them probably have sprinkler systems. A lot of them have burglar systems. A lot of them have these automatic fire systems, and an insurer many times is going to require them to keep these in place in order to maintain their coverage.
So you said a lot of the case law that you're seeing is upholding this condition. So if they're not in compliance, they do not get coverage for their fire.
Right.
So how do you think that would affect those standard fire policy states, which there's, a handful, and it's usually statutory based, and there are minimum requirements for fire coverage?
Yeah, and that's something we could probably go in depth in. And it's a little deep for here, but yeah, there's a few things there. So does that standard fire policy only apply to homeowners kind of policies, or does it also apply to commercial policies? Right. And is this addition of this kind of a requirement negating that coverage that's required for fire? So it's not like they are still providing fire coverage, but it's just conditioned upon this. And right, that's a good question, Sonia. We'd have to look into that a little more closely, and perhaps maybe in a later podcast we could delve really closely into that. But another thing I was going to mention is that sometimes there's been a few cases where they didn't even require that the breach of this duty here to keep these compliant. Maybe that wasn't even the cause of this loss, or didn't really even affect the outcome of the loss, and still that they said there's no coverage because it says as a condition of this insurance, you know, you're not going to get coverage if you haven't complied here. And so there's a possibility, even if it wasn't a real causal connection between the lack of a fire, you know, alarm and the actual outcome of the loss, you still might be denied coverage, even if there's not that causal connection. And there are some cases on that. And I think, Mike, I sent them to you guys, and Brennan can include our, we have an actual annotation of this endorsement. And so I think that'll discuss all the case law there.
Because that was going to be my question, Beth, before we go into final steps. But yeah, we did have some sort of an alarm system out there. It did eventually alert the fire department.
Right.
And eventually the fire department showed up. So here there was just maybe a little delay. And, you know, but and once that fire got those fireworks and the gunpowder, well, it's going to go off anyways. What could a fire department do there? I'll put that out. So maybe Benny's okay here, Beth.
Yeah. Well, I think Benny, he better go back and double check what he signed up for. You know, I think that, okay, he might have just said, I have an alarm. Maybe that's what he was thinking. Any kind of alarm is good enough. But this really has a schedule, and you have to put in there exactly what it is that you have kind of pledged to maintain here in order to keep your insurance.
It's like a promise, right?
It's a condition. This is conditioned upon you. Yeah. And this is, you know, you don't see this a lot in endorsements or policy provisions really very often, where it says as a condition of this insurance, blah, blah, blah. You don't see that very often. So that's pretty strong language.
Because when we're looking at our condition sections, typically in CP forms or HO forms, a lot of, go state by state, of course, but a lot of times we have to prove prejudice, right? You have to prove other things to deny coverage based on a condition, but this is different.
Right. Even in that one real new case I was talking about, I believe in that case, they said that the insurer didn't even have to show prejudice, that they didn't even have to show that, you know, the lack of this really affected the claim, that type of thing. So, they're pretty strict on this type of, you know, as long as, you know, and who knows, maybe you have to go back to the transaction when Benny bought this policy and what he knew and what he signed up for. But it's
so Beth, tell Benny I tried, but apparently the courts aren't going to go with it. All right.
Probably not, but you never know. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's too bad, but let's head into some key takeaways.
All right. Well, the first thing I think you better know about is check your policy. What is it that you signed up for when you got this particular policy, right? And if these particular safeguards are named there, understand what that means and make sure you're in compliance if you're the person purchasing the policy. And, you know, does it make it a condition of the insurance, or is it, you know, does that have to be related to the type of loss or not? These are all takeaways that make sure that if you're the insurer, make sure that the insured understands what it is that they're purchasing when they do this. And they have to have the specific type of system that you mention in your in your policy, especially when you're actually naming the type of alarm you have to have. Just any old alarm, a burglar alarm, in this case, really didn't cut it for Benny when he had this real bad fire.
Read your policy, Benny. And you can always reach out to your agent too, Beth, right? I mean, reach out. They'll help stuff out. Jeez.
All right. That's where Benny should have gone. And Mike, where should an adjuster go to learn more?
Well, go to your telephone book, find your agent's number, and oh no, it's not. Of course, plrb.org. Come on out, check it out. Like Beth said, there's some sort of annotation policy stuff out there. We got coverage questions. We have law reviews. Law review even involving a liquor store. I mean, come on. If that's worth the trip out to plrb.org just to check that out. There's also one exactly on topic here with the fire loss involving the Protective Safeguards Endorsement. PLRB.org legal hub is fantastic. While you're there, come on over to the Education Hub too, because that's what Brendan and I work with. And we like you to visit us too. So visit everything at PLRB.org. It's an awesome site. You'll love it. Trust me.
Yeah. And the annotations, under the commercial property annotations, we have a number of endorsements that we really have gone into depth. And one of these is the Protective Safeguard Endorsement.
There you go. If that's not worth coming out to PLRB.org, I don't know what is. Right, Brendan? And you're going to share all this stuff in the show notes. Brendan, as always, right?
Absolutely. And there you'll also find a recap of the key points from this episode and links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and please give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story.
How many calls have we had, Brendan?
None just yet. We're waiting. You got scenarios you want to hear? Let us know.
Yeah. Sonia, maybe in going back to my story about 911, maybe have your boys call in with the scenario. Just see, why not?
Oh, God.
There you go. No. Leave this number next to the phone. Perfect.
Right.
All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.